Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Take a moment, just a beat, and really consider the sheer, relentless pace of our modern world.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It really is. Whether you're navigating those endless commutes, maybe wrestling with demanding work, or just, trying to carve out a sliver of peace in a world that's constantly screaming for your attention, it feels like, well, it's a lot.
Yeah.
We're swimming in information overload, constantly distracted, and often just overwhelmed by this endless stream of anxieties about things completely outside our control.
Yeah.
How in the world do we find calm, find clarity, and genuine resilience amidst all that noise? How do we actually thrive?
It's such a universal and deeply human challenge, isn't it? We're so frequently barraged with messages telling us that contentment, that sense of genuine flourishing, it comes from external things.
Right, more stuff.
Exactly. More wealth, more prestige, the latest gadget, or, the perfect social media post. Yet for so many people, true inner peace just remains maddeningly elusive. You see people constantly worried about things they just can't influence, or reacting to every little stimulus on autopilot, feeling perpetually off balance.
And that's precisely why today we're taking a deep dive into an ancient philosophy that offers incredibly powerful and surprisingly practical tools for these very challenges. Stoicism. Now, when I say Stoicism, I know what often comes to mind for many people. Someone emotionless, maybe a bit rigid, unfeeling, like a stone statue.
Stiff upper lip cliche.
Exactly. But let's absolutely clear the air right now.
Yeah.
This isn't about suppressing who you are or becoming some kind of robot. It's about something far more profound. Living a life of deep purpose, unwavering tranquility, and truly unshakable character.
That's such an important distinction to make right up front. The historical Stoics were anything but detached or apathetic. I mean, look at them. They were incredibly pragmatic, deeply engaged with the world around them. Their ultimate aim was eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia, that's that Greek term.
Right, often translated as human flourishing or maybe a profound sense of well-being. And crucially, they believed it's achieved not by chasing external rewards, but by living a life guided by virtue and reason, aligning our actions with the very best parts of our unique human nature.
Okay.
So for this deep dive, our mission is really to journey through the core ideas of Stoicism, from its ancient origins, way back when, right up to its surprising and powerful applications today. We want to help you distill the most important nuggets of wisdom, helping you become not just more resilient and focused, but truly well-informed in a way that resonates with your own experience.
Because for the Stoics, that sense of deep happiness, that flourishing, it wasn't something you found outside yourself.
No, absolutely not. It was something you cultivated, discovered, and built from within. That's the radical shift in perspective.
Okay, let's unpack this then. To truly grasp what Stoicism offers, to really feel its potential impact on our lives, we need to start by laying out the foundational principles, the core ideas that define this philosophy. These are the bedrock ideas, the essential ingredients laid down by the very philosophers who shaped this rich tradition.
Indeed. And the absolute foundation, the very first principle you could say, is that virtue is the only true good.
The only true good.
The only true good. And conversely, its absence, what they call vice, is the only true evil. It's a remarkably radical idea, especially when you compare it to how many of us instinctively operate day to day.
Yeah, that feels different.
It is. Epictetus, who's probably one of the most accessible Stoic thinkers, put it beautifully. He said something like, the essence of good is a certain kind of reasoned choice, just as the essence of evil is another kind.
There isn't choice.
Yeah. This implies that things we often chase, or frankly, fear like wealth, health, fame, or even physical pain, they aren't inherently good or bad in themselves. They are what the Stoics termed indifferent.
Indifferent. Wow, that's a powerful word choice. So just to be crystal clear, things like money, your physical appearance, the job you have, even like a really painful experience, none of those are inherently good or bad on their own. That's so counterintuitive to how most of us are wired to think about success and suffering.
It really is. But yes, indifferents are precisely as you described. They are things that by themselves do not contribute to or detract from one's virtue or, true happiness. Think of the common examples: your health, your wealth, your property, your reputation, the pleasure you might feel, or the pain you might experience. None of these, in isolation, are inherently good or evil for your character, for your soul, you might say.
But wait, this doesn't mean a Stoic is indifferent to them in the way we use the word today, like apathy, right? They wouldn't just sit back if their house was burning down.
No, absolutely not. That's a common misunderstanding. The Stoics made a crucial distinction within this category of indifference. It's not about apathy at all.
Okay, good. Because I was picturing someone just shrugging everything off. So it's not that a Stoic would actively seek pain or poverty. That would truly miss the mark. They wouldn't just passively accept a terrible situation without trying to improve it, would they?
You've hit on a vital nuance there. While indifference aren't moral goods or evils in themselves, some are naturally preferred indifference.
Preferred indifference, okay. Like what?
These include things like health, a reasonable amount of wealth, maybe beauty, a good reputation, comfortable circumstances. They are generally seen as promoting a natural human condition and are often, though not always, useful for acting virtuously.
Right, it's easier to be helpful if you're not, chronically ill or starving.
Exactly. Good health usually allows us to function better, maybe serve others more effectively, pursue virtuous actions with more energy. Conversely, there are dispreferred indifference.
Okay, the flip side.
Right. Things like illness, poverty, maybe ugliness by societal standards, or even death itself. These are generally appropriate to avoid, if possible, without compromising virtue, because they can hinder us or make virtuous action more challenging.
Got it. So the goal isn't to be a masochist or to deliberately sabotage your life. It's about recognizing that the moral value, the goodness or badness in a truly Stoic sense, lies solely in how one responds to and uses these external things.
Precisely. It comes back to that reasoned choice.
Right. So if you have wealth, it's not the wealth itself that's good or bad, but how you earned it, maybe, how you use it, whether for selfish excess or for, say, social welfare, and crucially, how you respond if it's lost. It's all about the reasoned choice behind the action, the judgment you make about it.
Exactly. Epictetus put it succinctly. Externals are only the raw material for our reasoned choice, which finds its own good or evil in working with them. Imagine wealth or health or reputation as a tool, maybe like a hammer. A hammer itself isn't good or bad. It's the carpenter's skill and intention, whether they build a beautiful home or smash something valuable, that determines the moral outcome.
I see. The tool itself is neutral.
Exactly. So if your judgments about that raw material, the externals are straight and rational, aligned with virtue, your choices will be virtuous. But if your judgments are twisted, if you mistakenly believe wealth is the ultimate good, or losing your reputation is the ultimate evil, then your choices will inevitably lead to vice, anxiety, and inner turmoil.
Which leads us perfectly, I think, to maybe the most iconic and for many the most liberating Stoic concept.
Ah, yes. The dichotomy of control.
Exactly. This is probably one of the most well-known and immediately applicable Stoic ideas, isn't it? That simple but incredibly profound distinction. Some things are within our power, and some are just not.
This is truly Epictetus's cornerstone, the absolute heart of his teachings. He referred to it as ta ephemon, what is up to us, versus ta uk ephemon, what is not up to us.
Right, ta ephemon and ta uk ephemon.
Yeah.
So what do we actually control, according to Epictetus? What falls into that first category?
Well, according to him, it's essentially our inner world. We control our opinions, our judgments, our impulses to act, our desires, our aversions, basically our reasoned choice, that term prohairesis again. It's our capacity to use reason to categorize things, to respond to impressions from the world, and to reorient ourselves. It's our faculty of judgment and assent. That's it.
That sounds surprisingly limited. And what falls into that maybe more daunting what we don't control list? Because for most people, that list seems to be a lot longer.
Yeah.
And often the source of so much stress and anxiety.
You're absolutely right. That second list, the ta uk ephemon, includes the vast majority of external events. Things like, well, other people's actions and opinions, definitely. Our health, we can influence it, but we don't fully control it. Our reputation, our wealth, our physical body itself, even life and death, or whether we're exiled from our home like some of the Stoics were, all external.
Wow. Yeah, that's basically everything outside our own heads.
Pretty much. And the liberating insight here, the real aha moment for so many people who encounter this, is that worrying, fretting, getting angry about, or even excessively celebrating things outside our control is utterly unproductive. It's irrational, and ultimately, it's futile.
So just let it go.
Well, focus your energy where it matters. The Stoics advocate for focusing our energy, our attention, our efforts only on what is within our power, our judgments and choices. This singular focus, they argued, naturally leads to a profound sense of inner peace, psychological freedom, and an almost unshakable calm. Think of it as the ultimate energy management system for your mind. You stop wasting fuel on things you can't steer.
That's incredibly powerful when you think about it. So it's not just about intellectually knowing the difference between what we control and what we don't, is it?
Yeah.
It's about actively applying that knowledge, maybe minute by minute, hour by hour, to our daily lives. How do we move from just understanding it conceptually to truly living it? That seems like the hard part.
Oh, that is the real challenge, absolutely. And Epictetus issued a profound call to action on this very point. He said something along the lines of, "The chief task in life is simply this: to identify in separate matter so that I can say clearly to myself, which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control."
Identify and separate.
Yes. And then he asks, where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own. He wasn't suggesting it's easy, not at all. He actually recounted this vivid example of a man returning from exile. This guy vows he's going to live a quiet life, devoted to philosophy, away from the hustle.
Okay, sounds good.
But then, as soon as he smells the familiar scent of Rome and gets letters from Caesar, inviting him back into politics, he immediately forgets his vow. He gets completely caught up in the old games again.
Pulled right back in.
Exactly. Epictetus uses this to illustrate how easily we forget what's truly within our control and mistakenly place our peace, our happiness, in external circumstances. The moment that man started thinking these external things, power, influence, the city itself, were truly good, his inner tranquility was just gone. Poof.
That example really hits home, doesn't it? It highlights how easily we can get pulled back into those old patterns, those old ways of thinking. It completely shifts the focus from the external world and all its demands to our own internal state, our judgments.
Right.
And this ties in beautifully, I think, with the third foundational pillar you mentioned, living in agreement with nature. What exactly did the Stoics mean by that? It sounds a little bit mystical, maybe.
It sounds mystical, yeah, but for the Stoics, it was profoundly practical and actually quite rational. For human beings, living in agreement with nature primarily means living in agreement with our distinctive, innate endowment, our capacity for reason.
Okay, so our ability to think logically.
Yes. Unlike a plant that simply grows towards the sun, or an animal that acts purely on instinct, our unique and defining characteristic as humans is our ability to reason, to make rational choices, to understand complex ideas, and to act purposefully. So, aligning with our specific nature means acting rationally, choosing virtue, and constantly developing our judgment, using that unique tool we have.
But it's not just about our individual human nature, is it? I seem to recall there's a broader, grander, almost cosmic aspect to it as well. That's where it can get a bit more abstract for me.
You're absolutely right, and it's a crucial layer. It also implies harmonizing with the universal natural order, what they sometimes called right reason or even God or Zeus. The Stoics generally believed this universal reason, this logos, pervades everything, governing the cosmos in a rational, ordered way and subtly impelling us toward right action.
So like a universal intelligence or plan?
Sort of. Think of it this way. A carpenter's saw is designed, its nature is, for cutting wood. If you use it for that purpose, you're aligning with its nature. For us, our unique tool, our saw, is reason. Living in agreement with our nature means acting rationally, purposefully, not just impulsively like other animals might.
Okay, that makes sense.
And beyond that, yes, the Stoics saw a grand cosmic order, a divine reason that governs everything in a way that is ultimately good and coherent, even if we can't always see how from our limited perspective. So, living in agreement with nature also means accepting our place within that larger, perfectly designed universe, much like a piece of a magnificent jigsaw puzzle fitting perfectly into the whole picture.
Accepting our role in the big scheme of things.
Exactly. Epictetus often highlighted this sense of design. He'd ask things like, who fitted the knife to the case, or colors to the faculty of seeing? He's pointing to the suitability of things. Does then each of these things demonstrate the workman, he asks, and do not visible things, and the faculty of seeing in light demonstrate him? He's asking us to observe, to see the intelligent design in the world around us and acknowledge our interconnected place within it.
So it's about seeing ourselves not as these isolated individuals fighting against the world, but as an integral, perhaps even designed piece of this larger, divinely ordered whole. That's a truly humbling perspective, actually.
Absolutely. Humbling and potentially deeply comforting. Epictetus frequently emphasized that we are a portion separated from the deity, carrying a God within yourself. He implored his students not to pollute this inner spark, this inner reason, with impure thoughts or dirty deeds. We are parts of the whole, he'd say, like an hour is part of a day. We must be present, play our specific role virtuously, and then pass like the hour, accepting our inevitable place in the greater cosmic drama. This understanding, this acceptance, underpins their approach to what many find to be the most misunderstood aspect of Stoicism, emotions.
Yeah, okay. And that brings us to that concept that, as you say, often gets completely twisted when people first encounter Stoicism. The extirpation of passions, or pathos, versus what they call good states, or eupathia. This is exactly where that emotionless robot stereotype really comes from, isn't it? Let's break that down carefully.
It is indeed the most pervasive and, frankly, damaging misconception out there. In Stoicism, the word passion, pathos, does not refer to all emotions. That's key. It specifically refers to irrational, excessive, and disruptive impulses that arise from misjudgments about what is truly good or bad.
Okay, so not just any feeling, but specific kinds. Like what?
Like unbridled anger that makes you lose control, paralyzing fear that stops you from acting, obsessive desire for something external, or overwhelming distress and grief. They are viewed as turbulent responses to external circumstances that completely disrupt our inner peace and our ability to reason clearly.
Because they stem from a mistake in judgment.
Exactly. Chrysippus, one of the brilliant early Stoics who really systematized this, clarified that these passions stem from incorrectly attributing value to something neutral or indifferent. For example, excessive pleasure might come from a mistaken belief in the absolute goodness of something fleeting, like winning the lottery. Intense fear arises from false perceptions of threats, seeing something as an ultimate evil when it's really just a dispreferred indifferent, like losing your job.
So just to reiterate, it's not about being a stone or trying to suppress all feelings, but rather understanding the root cause of these disruptive emotions and freeing oneself from being controlled by them. It sounds more like emotional mastery, not emotional absence.
Precisely. You've nailed it. The goal is not to be unfeeling. The goal is to free oneself from being enslaved by these irrational passions. The disturbance caused by passions, as they saw it, is a direct result of flawed reasoning, of judging something to be ultimately good or bad that is actually indifferent. A Stoic aims for apatheia.
Apatheia. That sounds like apathy.
But it's not. That's another common trip up because of the modern word. In Stoic context, apatheia crucially means freedom from distressing emotions, or freedom from suffering. It's a state of tranquility and clear-headedness which enables rational action rather than blind reactivity. It leads towards eudaimonia, that flourishing state.
Okay, that clarification is huge. Apatheia is freedom from disturbance, not absence of feeling. But if these passions are viewed so negatively, what about positive emotions? Are joy, love, compassion also supposed to be eliminated? That would seem bleak.
Not at all. And that's where the eupathia come in. The virtuous person, the Stoic sage, or even just someone making progress experiences what are called good states or good feelings, eupathia. These are rational and appropriate emotional responses that are in agreement with reason and virtue.
Okay, so what qualifies as a good state?
They generally categorize three types: joy, chara, but it's specifically joy over what is rationally good, like witnessing or performing virtuous actions, or recognizing your own progress in character. Then there's caution, eulobeia, which is irrational shrinking from what is genuinely bad, namely vice or acting against reason. And finally, wish or willing, belesis, which is a rational stretching toward what is truly good, like wisdom or virtue itself.
So you can feel joy, like joy in a friend's company.
Absolutely. A virtuous person absolutely experiences joy in a friend's company. And here's the Stoic twist, they recognize that the friend's presence, while wonderful, is a preferred indifferent, not an absolute good, like virtue itself.
Okay. So appreciate it, but don't cling to it as the source of your ultimate well-being.
Exactly. So if the friend is absent, or if something happens to the friend, it doesn't hurt the soul of the virtuous person, as they might say. Because, as we establish, only vice, only errors in judgment can truly harm your inner self, your core being. External events, even sad ones, can't touch that if your judgments are correct.
This sounds like a profound reevaluation of how we typically experience our emotional lives. It's quite subtle. Can you give us an even more, maybe visceral, example of how this applies to common human experiences? Beyond the abstract definitions, how did Epictetus explain this?
Epictetus, having lived through slavery and disability, was masterful at grounding these ideas. He would constantly remind his students that their suffering wasn't caused directly by external events, but by their opinion of those events, their judgment about them.
It's the interpretation, not the event itself.
Precisely. He used famous examples. He explained that Achilles' profound lamentation in the Iliad wasn't caused by Patroclus' death itself, death being an indifferent. It was caused by Achilles' choice to lament his judgment that Patroclus' death was an unbearable, ultimate evil that shouldn't have happened.
So Achilles chose his suffering, in a way.
From a strict Stoic perspective, yes. Similarly, he points to the horrific story of Medea murdering her own children to spite Jason. While an undeniably powerful and tragic act driven by intense emotion, Epictetus argued it stemmed from an aberration of soul. She didn't truly know where happiness or fulfillment lies. She thought it was tied to something external, revenge on Jason possessing his love, rather than her own inner state, her own virtue. He stated it quite starkly. It was because she chose to do so.
Wow. That's a chilling but crystal clear illustration of the power they attributed to our internal judgments and choices, even in the face of extreme emotion.
It starkly highlights that our suffering and our reactions spring from our opinions and choices, not directly from the external events themselves. The event is just data. The opinion is the interpretation that causes the feeling.
And why is it so incredibly important for the Stoics to actively work to eliminate these toxic emotions? The unbridled anger, the paralyzing fear, the excessive grief from their lives. What's the ultimate purpose behind seeking apatheia?
The ultimate purpose is inner freedom, unshakable tranquility, and the ability to act virtuously. These disruptive passions arise, the Stoics argued, from neglecting our inborn resources, our reason and our natural preconceptions of good and bad, and from failing to root out false beliefs about the world.
So they block clear thinking.
Exactly, they cloud our judgment. They viewed hope and fear in particular as problematic because they're often vague projections onto uncontrollable future events. They tether our peace of mind to external outcomes we can't guarantee.
Right, hoping for a specific outcome, fearing another.
Yeah.
It makes you vulnerable.
Precisely. Seneca, drawing on an earlier Stoic named Epictetus of Rhodes, wisely said, "Cease to hope, and you will cease to fear." He didn't mean stop having goals, but stop attaching your inner peace to the achievement of external outcomes. If our well-being is dependent on things outside our control, we are perpetually vulnerable, constantly oscillating between anxiety and disappointment.
And these emotions hinder our ability to act well.
Definitely. They hinder our ability to act virtuously and fulfill our duties, both to ourselves and others. Think about it. If a leader is consumed by anger or fear, can they make rational decisions for their people?
No, probably not.
If a parent is paralyzed by anxiety, can they properly care for their children? The Stoics believed that true flourishing demands mastery over these internal disturbances, allowing reason, our guiding faculty, to direct our actions and reactions calmly and effectively.
Okay, so with these core principles firmly in mind, virtue as the only good, the dichotomy of control, living in agreement with nature, both human and cosmic, and mastering those disruptive passions, how did the Stoics actually live this philosophy day to day? It's one thing to understand the theory, but what were their daily practices? How did they navigate life's messy, unpredictable labyrinth using these ideas?
This is exactly where the philosophy shifts from theory to practice, where it becomes a tangible guide for living. Because, as you say, it's not enough to just intellectually grasp these concepts. They have to be embodied through consistent effort and training. One of the primary practical applications, really foundational to everything else, is in managing our opinions and perceptions, actively building what you might call an inner fortress.
That makes me think of that iconic quote again. It's not things that upset us, but our judgment about things. That seems to perfectly encapsulate this idea of the inner fortress, right?
Absolutely. Epictetus put it unequivocally, "Nothing outside my reasoned choice can hinder or harm it. My reasoned choice alone can do this to itself." Our judgments are the gatekeepers. He famously used the Iliad as an analogy to drive this point home.
The Trojan War, how did that fit in?
He argued that the real ruin of Paris wasn't the Trojan War itself or the physical destruction of cities. It was when Paris lost the character of modesty, fidelity, regard to hospitality by abducting Helen. That was the internal failure.
The failure of virtue.
Exactly. And Achilles' ruin wasn't actually Patroclus' death, as tragic as that was. His ruin began when he began to be angry, when he wept excessively for a girl, when he forgot that he was at Troy not to get mistresses, but to fight. For the Stoics, the destruction of right opinions, the corruption of our internal judgments is the true ruin. The external events are simply the stage. Our internal response, our judgment, is the actual play that determines our well-being.
So the real battle, the one that truly matters for our peace and flourishing, is always internal. It's against our own misjudgments, our distorted perceptions, our tendency to, as you mentioned earlier, add something to the appearance and represent things to be greater than what they are. How do we actually do that in practice? How do we catch ourselves?
Epictetus gives wonderfully vivid, practical examples. Imagine you're out at sea, maybe on a small boat, and you see the vast, deep ocean stretching out before you. Your mind might immediately leap to a terrifying thought. Oh no, what if I get shipwrecked? I'd have to drink all of that.
Okay, yeah, an irrational fear.
Right. Or you feel a slight tremor under your feet, and your mind instantly jumps to the entire city collapsing in a massive earthquake. Epictetus then asks, quite pointedly, what then disturbs me? The sea. No, but my opinion about the sea. Or the earthquake. No, but my opinion about the earthquake.
It's the added story, the catastrophizing.
Exactly. Socrates, whom Epictetus greatly admired, called things that people typically feel, like death, physical pain, poverty, tragic masks, they look terrifying on the surface.
Like masks in Greek tragedy.
Precisely. Socrates suggested you simply need to turn it and examine it. See, it does not bite. Regarding death, you'd say something like, the poor body must be separated from the spirit either now or later. Why, then, are you troubled if it be separated now? This practice of pausing, scrutinizing our initial gut reaction, and deliberately distinguishing the raw, objective fact from our added, often negative interpretation is absolutely central to maintaining tranquility. It's about actively questioning the narratives we automatically construct in our minds.
This sounds like an incredibly powerful way to cultivate resilience and character, doesn't it? To become, as you put it earlier, a true athlete of the mind, always ready, or at least better prepared, for whatever life throws at you, even the really tough curveballs.
Indeed. Stoics take a profoundly different view of misfortune than most people. They don't just aim to endure mishaps passively, they actually expect them and use them as opportunities to hone their virtues. It's a proactive stance.
Expect them. Like anticipate bad things happening.
In a way, yes. Not dwelling on them fearfully, but acknowledging their possibility. They actively seek benefit wherever possible rather than getting bogged down in lamenting what went wrong. Imagine for a moment a significant setback at work. A big project you poured your heart into fails. Or you get passed over for a promotion you really wanted and felt you deserved.
Yeah, that stings. The typical reaction might be anger, frustration, maybe self-pity.
Right. But a Stoic, or someone practicing Stoicism, would ideally try to immediately turn inward. Ask, okay, what aspect of the situation is actually within my control? My reaction, certainly. My effort to learn from this experience, yes. My decision to persist with renewed effort or perhaps to pivot my strategy, that's all up to me.
So finding the opportunity within the setback.
Exactly. They might use the unexpected failure or downtime to learn a new skill that makes them more valuable, or to cultivate patience, or maybe even reconnect with forgotten passions or relationships that got sidelined by work. Just like that earlier, perhaps slightly extreme, example of breaking a leg and using the forced bedridden time to write a book or study philosophy. This active reframing of adversity is absolutely key to Stoic practice. It turns obstacles into training grounds.
So hardships aren't just things to be endured or survived. They're actually seen as opportunities, almost like a divine training regimen. That sounds intense.
It is intense, but also empowering. Epictetus famously likened God, or the rational universe, to a trainer of wrestlers. He said, when a difficulty falls upon you, remember that God, like a trainer of wrestlers, has matched you with a rough young man.
A tough opponent.
Yeah, and then he asks, for what purpose, you may say? Why? That you may become an Olympic conqueror, but it is not accomplished without sweat. Difficulties are seen as the necessary resistance that builds spiritual and moral strength.
Like lifting weights for the soul.
Exactly. He also spoke highly of Diogenes the Cynic, who, while not strictly a Stoic, shared many core beliefs portraying him as a kind of scout sent out by humanity. Diogenes reported back that things people fear, like death is no evil, for neither is it base, and that fame is the noise of madmen. Diogenes lived an incredibly austere life by choice, yet he embodied courage, tranquility, and freedom. He demonstrated powerfully that inner peace and virtue don't depend on external comfort or possessions at all. He showed that a seemingly difficult life, when approached with the right mindset, can still project profound peace and freedom from fear.
This really underscores that it isn't just theory then. It's about rigorous, consistent daily practice. It's not a one-time intellectual exercise you figure out and then you're done.
Absolutely not. It's a lifelong commitment. Epictetus viewed the philosopher's school as a surgery, a place you go to heal.
A surgery, not a lecture hall.
Right. He provocatively stated that students shouldn't leave a philosophy school feeling pleasure like they've been entertained. They should leave with pain, because they are entering sick with flawed judgments and bad habits needing to fix dislocations and drain abscesses, metaphorically speaking.
Wow, that's a stark image.
It is. It emphasizes that it's a place for difficult internal work, not just for idle talk or showing off how much you know. A true Stoic, or someone aspiring to be one, embodies the philosophy rather than simply preaching it. It requires consistent study, yes, but also deep introspection and relentless practice to truly align your actions and reactions with virtue. Because, as Epictetus warned, if we neglect this constant practice, we are forthwith caught half asleep by every appearance. We just react on autopilot.
So you have to stay vigilant.
Constantly. The true athlete, he says, is the one who exercises himself against such appearances. When a challenging thought or situation arises, don't be immediately hurried away by that first impression, that gut reaction. Instead, say to it mentally, appearances, wait for me a little. Let me see who you are and what you are about. Let me put you to the test. It's an active, ongoing engagement with your own mind, moment by moment.
That's a fantastic image of mental discipline, like a form of mental martial art, constantly testing and parrying impressions. Now, shifting gears slightly, what about social responsibility and human connection? Does Stoicism, with its strong focus on the individual's inner world, the inner fortress, does it actually extend outwards to others? Or is it all just about achieving individual inner peace, potentially at the expense of community? Is there a collective dimension?
Oh, it absolutely extends outwards, and it's a profound misconception to think Stoicism is purely individualistic or self-absorbed. In fact, Stoicism strongly emphasizes social responsibility and the fundamental interconnectedness of all humanity. This is beautifully encapsulated in the concept of oikeiosis.
Oikeiosis. Okay, what does that mean?
It's often translated as appropriation, affinity, or natural belonging. The Stoics saw it as a developmental process that starts right from birth. It begins with self-love and basic self-preservation. Think of a baby instinctively reaching for its mother's milk, recognizing its own needs and constitution.
Okay, so a natural, almost biological starting point for concern yourself first.
Yes, a very natural and fundamental impulse. But, and this is crucial, as our reason develops, as we grow, we come to identify ourself or our constitution more deeply with our mental faculty, our rational capacity. That's what truly makes us human.
Right, our ability to reason.
And since we share this capacity for reason with all other human beings, our circle of concern naturally expands outward from ourselves. Epictetus points out that parental love is natural. Even a sheep or a wolf doesn't desert its offspring, he says. It's built in. From this innate familial bond, our circle of concern logically and naturally expands to encompass friends, neighbors, our community, fellow citizens, and ultimately all of humanity.
So it's like ripples expanding outwards from the self. That sounds like the basis for what we might call universal ethics, a kind of foundational empathy grounded in shared reason.
Indeed. Heracles, another Stoic philosopher, visualized this beautifully with his famous circles of concern. Imagine concentric circles. At the very center is your own self, your mind. The next circle out is your immediate family, then friends, then fellow townspeople or citizens, then countrymen. And the outermost circle encompasses all of humanity.
Okay, I can picture that.
The practical ethical exercise Heracles recommended was to consciously try to draw these outer circles inward. You actively work to bring those further out strangers, people from other countries closer to the center, treating their concerns as if they were your own families or friends. The goal is making the unfamiliar concern of others familiar.
That's a powerful mental exercise for cultivating empathy.
It truly is. It represents a profound shift from exclusive self-regard, which they saw as natural but immature, towards impartial other concern. For the Stoics, we are fundamentally social creatures endowed with reason, and therefore we are duty-bound to promote the welfare of others, whether they are strangers or intimates. To be exclusively self-regarding, focused only on your own profit or pleasure, is actually seen as contrary to natural law and a sign of moral immaturity. True moral maturity, in the Stoic view, is synonymous with impartiality, justice, and universal benevolence. We are citizens of the cosmos, the cosmopolis.
And this perspective naturally leads to something akin to the golden rule, doesn't it? Treating others as you would wish to be treated yourself.
Exactly. Treating others with the same care, respect, and fairness that reason dictates you should give to yourself. This builds that sense of interconnectedness, what they sometimes called sympathia, a feeling of fellowship with all beings. And it fosters mutual cooperation, which is essential for human society to function well. Epictetus, for instance, famously critiques the rival Epicurean school's stance on maybe not bringing up children because it causes trouble and anxiety. He argues that if a child is born, it's simply natural and rational, a part of our social nature, to love and care for them. Our individual interests, because of our fundamental rational and social nature, are inextricably bound up with the interests of the whole community of humankind. To abandon that duty is, in a sense, to abandon a core part of what it means to be human, according to Stoic thought.
These insights definitely help challenge some of those persistent misconceptions about Stoicism that float around. The idea that it's all about being cold and emotionless, for instance, seems to be the one that just won't die. Can we just hammer that one home again?
We absolutely should, because it's probably the most pervasive and frustrating myth to debunk. Let's be clear. Stoicism is not about suppressing all emotions, or being a cold, unfeeling individual like Star Trek's Vulcans, maybe.
Right, not Mr. Spock.
Not Mr. Spock, exactly. As we discussed, it aims for apatheia, which, remember, is freedom from distressing emotions. Those irrational impulses like unthinking rage, paralyzing terror, or debilitating grief that arise from misjudgments about what's truly good or bad. It's about not being controlled by these specific, irrational emotions, which enables inner peace and clear, rational action. As one modern Stoic author put it, it's not about being an emotionally suppressed stone, nor is it about passively accepting injustice like some kind of punching bag.
Yeah.
It's about being intentional and rational with how we respond to the world, aligning our reactions with virtue and reason, rather than being swept away by unexamined impulses. It's about responding wisely, not just reacting blindly. It's about cultivating beneficial emotions like joy and virtue, rational caution, and goodwill towards others.
And it's also not about neglecting your body or living a life of extreme self-deprivation either, is it?
Yeah.
We often hear about Diogenes living in a barrel and maybe assume all Stoics lived like hermits.
No, not at all. That's another caricature. While the will, the prohairesis, the rational faculty, is supreme, Epictetus explicitly argues for cleanliness and proper care of the body. He actually cited Socrates and Diogenes themselves, noting that despite their simple living, they were reportedly pleasant to see, and their physical appearance did not deter others from philosophy.
So hygiene matters.
Yes. He states quite clearly that a philosopher's appearance should not be needlessly off-putting. Otherwise, it hinders the spread of the very philosophy they represent by making it seem unattractive or unnatural. He says, cleanse this, referring primarily to the rational faculty, our mind, but also cleanse the body. It's about balance, moderation, and appropriateness according to nature, not necessarily extreme asceticism for its own sake. A healthy body, after all, is a preferred, indifferent, a useful tool that can support virtuous action. You don't abuse the tool.
Got it. So it's also definitely not about seeking external validation or constantly performing for praise.
Yeah.
Right? That seems completely antithetical to the internal focus we've been talking about.
Absolutely not. That would violate the dichotomy of control principle fundamentally. Epictetus was particularly scathing in his criticism of students who studied philosophy just for display or for external validation, like hoping a visiting senator will admire their clever arguments at a dinner party.
Trying to impress people.
Exactly. He points out that those who are humble and quiet when not applauded, but then become visibly elated and puffed up when praised, clearly haven't truly internalized Stoic principles about where value lies. He challenges such individuals, asking bluntly, do you wish to be admired by madmen? Meaning, why seek validation from people whose judgments might be flawed? The true reward for a practicing Stoic is internal. It's found in the virtuous act itself, in the cultivation of one's own character, in living according to reason regardless of public opinion or external rewards. If you seek praise, your tranquility will always be fragile, always at the mercy of others' opinions, which are, of course, entirely outside your control.
And finally, it certainly isn't an excuse for passivity, is it?
Yeah.
Just quietly contemplating your navel while the world burns around you, saying, oh, well, it's external.
Not in the slightest. That's another lazy stereotype. Epictetus explicitly questions those who seek only quietness and detachment, while others are actively engaged in the world's affairs, fulfilling their roles. He asks something like, why are we still indolent and negligent and sluggish, and why do we seek pretenses for not laboring and not being watchful in cultivating our reason?
So he's calling them out.
Yes. This strongly implies that a true philosopher should first labor to improve their own reason and character, and then actively apply that reason to address important matters in the world, according to their role and duties. It is about actively cultivating virtue, understanding your duty to others as part of the human community, and engaging with the world with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, not being a detached, indifferent bystander. The Stoic ideal is an engaged citizen of the world, acting from a place of rational purpose and inner calm.
It's truly fascinating how a philosophy born in ancient Greece, literally thousands of years ago, can feel so incredibly cutting edge and relevant today. Stoicism isn't just some dusty ancient relic. It's clearly a dynamic philosophy that has continually re-emerged and found new relevance across centuries, adapting to new contexts. Let's trace its historical journey a bit more and see how its timeless wisdom continues to speak to us, especially now.
The lineage of Stoicism is truly remarkable, isn't it? Spanning centuries and producing this incredible range of thinkers who not only thought about but actively tried to embody these principles in very different circumstances. It all began, as the story goes, around 334 BCE with Zeno of Citium.
Zeno, the founder.
Right. He was apparently a wealthy merchant originally who lost everything in a shipwreck near Athens. Instead of despairing perhaps an early Stoic lesson there, he sought wisdom, encountered Socratic philosophy, and eventually began teaching his own synthesis of ideas. He taught publicly on a porch in the Athenian agora, the marketplace, called the Stoa Poikile, which means painted porch. And that's where the name Stoicism literally comes from, the philosophy of the porch.
From the Stoa, okay.
He was the one who first laid the groundwork, emphasizing virtue as the highest good and living in accordance with nature.
And who carried the torch after Zeno, who kept the school going.
His most notable successor as the head of the Stoic school was Cleanthes, born around 330 BCE. Cleanthes had this amazing backstory. He was apparently a boxer originally, and legend has it he was so dedicated to learning philosophy but so poor that he worked drawing water from wells all night just to pay for his studies during the day.
Wow, that's dedication.
Incredible dedication. He really stressed the importance of assenting correctly to reason, accepting the rational order of the universe. He famously wrote the beautiful Hymn to Zeus, which contains those powerful lines, "Lead me, O Zeus, and thou necessity. The way that I am bid by you to go, to follow bravely that I will, and if I falter, I shall follow still." This became a touchstone for later Stoics on accepting what is inevitable and aligning one's will with the cosmos.
A powerful expression of acceptance.
Very much so. And after Cleanthes came Chrysippus, born around 279 BCE. Chrysippus is often called the second founder of Stoicism because he was just incredibly prolific and systematic. He reportedly wrote hundreds of treatises, sadly, almost all lost except in fragments quoted by others. He significantly expanded Stoic logic, physics, and ethics. He was crucial in developing that sophisticated understanding of passions as misjudgments of indifference we discussed earlier. He essentially built the comprehensive philosophical framework that defined Stoicism for centuries.
So Zeno laid the foundation, Cleanthes reinforced it, and Chrysippus built the detailed structure.
And then the philosophy really took root and flourished centuries later in Rome, didn't it? Giving us some of the most accessible and widely read Stoic figures we know today. That powerful Roman triumvirate, really.
Yes, exactly. The Roman Stoics are perhaps the most widely recognized today, partly because more of their writings survive, and partly because they focus so intensely on applying Stoicism directly to the practical challenges of daily life, ethics, and leadership. And you're right, there's that key trio. First, you have Seneca, born around 4 BCE.
Seneca the Younger.
Right, an incredibly influential figure, a renowned playwright, a brilliant essayist, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, and famously an advisor and tutor to the Emperor Nero. Talk about a challenging workplace.
No kidding. His letters from a Stoic and his essays on the shortness of life, or on anger, are just treasure troves of timeless, practical advice on topics like managing grief, dealing with wealth and power, controlling anger, facing mortality, and finding tranquility amidst chaos. Despite his immense privilege, he constantly faced political dangers under Nero and was ultimately forced by the emperor to commit suicide, which he reportedly faced with Stoic composure. He really embodied that idea of philosophical resilience, emphasizing, think your way through difficulties. Harsh conditions can be softened, restricted ones can be widened, and heavy ones can weigh less on those who know how to bear them. Practical advice from someone who lived it.
It's quite a stark contrast then, moving from Seneca's immense wealth and power to the other end of the social spectrum with the next great Roman Stoic figure.
It really is, and that's part of the extraordinary beauty and, you might say, the democratic nature of Stoicism. It was accessible to everyone, regardless of station. Next, you have Epictetus, born a slave around 50 CE in Hierapolis, in modern-day Turkey.
Born a slave. Incredible.
Incredible. And he was physically disabled, likely due to severe abuse he suffered early in life while enslaved in Rome. Despite these incredibly challenging external circumstances, he gained his freedom and became one of the most profound and influential teachers of self-control, detachment from externals, and the absolute paramount importance of focusing on our reason choice, our prohairesis. His teachings, collected as the Discourses in the Enchiridion or Handbook, weren't actually written by him.
Right, they were notes taken by his student.
Exactly, transcribed by his devoted student Arian. Epictetus himself, like Socrates, never wrote anything down. His own mentor, Musonius Rufus, another fascinating figure, a Roman knight often exiled for his Stoic principles, deeply influenced Epictetus's emphasis on living and practicing philosophy, not just theorizing about it. Epictetus's life itself is maybe the most powerful demonstration that true freedom is an internal state, completely independent of external circumstances like status or physical condition.
From a slave to one of history's most revered philosophers. Amazing. And finally, completing that Roman trio, the emperor-philosopher himself, Marcus Aurelius, who somehow managed to lead one of the most powerful empires the world had ever seen while consistently turning inward to these very principles.
Marcus Aurelius, yes. Born 121 CE, Roman emperor for nearly 2 decades, from 161 to 180 CE, and his reign was anything but peaceful. He faced constant wars on the frontiers, internal revolts, betrayals, and even a devastating plague, the Antonine Plague, that ravaged the empire. His famous work, The Meditations, is truly unique. It wasn't written for publication. It's essentially his private journal, his personal thoughts and self-admonishment.
Notes to himself.
Exactly. Notes to himself, written likely in the evenings while on military campaigns. In it, he constantly reminds himself of Stoic principles, urging himself to be more virtuous, to remain calm in adversity, to act justly, to focus on his duty, and to remember the interconnectedness of all things and his place within the cosmos. Here was arguably the most powerful man in the world at the time, yet every day he was wrestling with his own human weaknesses, his temper, his frustrations, his anxieties, and consciously seeking to align himself with reason and virtue.
It's incredibly humbling to read.
It really is. As the historian Edward Gibbon famously wrote under Marcus, the Roman Empire was governed by absolute power under the guidance of wisdom and virtue. Whether that's entirely accurate is debatable, but Marcus's aspiration is clear. His life is a profound testament to the challenge and the possibility of applying Stoicism at the very highest level of responsibility and pressure.
And we really shouldn't forget Cato the Younger, should we? He didn't leave behind writings like the others, but his life itself became a powerful Stoic symbol.
Precisely. Cato the Younger, born 95 BCE, was a Roman statesman and a truly fierce, uncompromising defender of the Roman Republic against what he saw as tyranny and corruption, particularly embodied by Julius Caesar. He wasn't a writer, but he lived Stoic virtues, integrity, duty, courage, indifference to external opinion in the messy, high-stakes world of Roman politics.
He became legendary for his integrity.
Absolutely legendary. He resisted Julius Caesar's rise to power relentlessly. And when Caesar was ultimately victorious in the Civil War, Cato famously chose suicide in Utica, North Africa, rather than live under Caesar's rule or accept a pardon from him. This act cemented his status as a martyr for liberty and republican virtue. He became this powerful symbol of principled resistance, quoted and admired centuries later by figures like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin during the American Revolution. His actions spoke volumes about what it means to live and die for one's philosophical principles.
So clearly, this wasn't just some fleeting philosophical trend confined to a few isolated thinkers in Greece and Rome. It proved to be a remarkably resilient philosophy throughout history, sometimes fading from view but then powerfully re-emerging when times got tough or when people sought answers.
It certainly was resilient. After the Roman Empire declined in the West, and especially after 529 CE, when the Byzantine Emperor Justinian closed the remaining philosophical schools in Athens, including the Platonic Academy, Stoicism did enter a period where it was less prominent, at least in the West. As one source notes, there was little interest in or detailed knowledge of the Stoics' arguments for about 1,000 years. This could be seen as a kind of dark ages for explicit Stoic philosophy in Europe, although its ethical influence arguably persisted implicitly through other traditions.
That's a significant gap, 1,000 years. Where and how did it eventually resurface so powerfully?
It began to reappear significantly during the Renaissance and the subsequent intellectual ferment of the Reformation and the Enlightenment. Thinkers rediscovered classical texts, and Stoicism popped up again in the works of incredibly influential figures. People like Justus Lipsius led a neo-Stoic revival in the late 16th century, trying to blend Stoic ethics with Christianity. Then you see its ideas being engaged with, adapted, or sometimes reacted against by major thinkers like Machiavelli, Hobbes, Spinoza, Locke, Rousseau, Kant, Adam Smith, and David Hume.
So it became part of the intellectual conversation again.
Very much so. Whether they were agreeing with its tenets, like the focus on reason or natural law, adapting them, like ideas about self-preservation or social contract, or even opposing them, like critiques of its views on emotion or providence, the Stoic arguments were clearly back in intellectual circulation, shaping modern philosophy in profound ways. And a notable moment for bringing it to a wider audience was Elizabeth Carter's popular English translation of Epictetus's works in the mid-18th century.
Making it accessible beyond just scholars.
Exactly. It brought these profound, practical ideas about resilience and inner peace to a much broader British and American public, influencing the thought and character of many during a period of significant social and political change. This revival cemented its place not just as an ancient curiosity, but as a perennial source of wisdom for navigating life.
And this brings us right up to the present day, doesn't it? How is Stoicism finding its maybe unexpected but incredibly powerful place in the digital age and beyond? It feels like in so many ways we need its guidance now more than ever.
I completely agree. It's incredibly relevant, perhaps more so than ever. Stoicism offers these deeply practical tools for navigating modern challenges. Challenges the ancient Stoics couldn't have even conceived of, like information overload, social media anxiety, or the 24/7 news cycle. It provides clear frameworks for improving mental health, enhancing decision-making clarity, and cultivating genuine resilience in a world that often feels specifically designed to overwhelm us and hijack our attention.
Yeah, given our constant digital connectivity, the endless scroll, the comparison culture, and just the sheer volume of information hitting us, I can definitely see how principles of self-control, focusing on what matters and managing our reactions, would be absolutely invaluable.
Yeah.
It's so hard to escape the noise sometimes.
Absolutely. Stoic practices like mindfulness and self-reflection, which are central to the philosophy, help us stay grounded and self-aware in the midst of all that digital chaos, instead of just reacting on autopilot to every notification, every email ding, every provoking news headline. These practices empower us to pause, to reflect, and to make conscious, reasoned choices about where we direct our attention and energy.
And journaling comes in here too, right? That seems like a very Stoic practice.
Definitely. Modern digital journaling apps, for example, have arguably transformed this ancient practice of self-examination, which figures like Marcus Aurelius clearly engaged in. They offer consistency, easy searchability for tracking patterns in your thoughts or behaviors, and even guided reflection prompts based on Stoic principles. They make it easier than ever to maintain a regular practice of processing your thoughts, examining your judgments, and documenting your experiences for growth. It's essentially a modern, accessible version of Marcus Aurelius writing his meditations in his tent.
That's a great connection. And what about that idea you mentioned earlier, the negative visualization or premeditatio malorum, contemplating bad things? It sounds a bit morbid on the surface, but it's very Stoic, right? How does that help in the modern world?
It might sound pessimistic at first blush, yeah, but it's actually a profoundly powerful and counterintuitive tool for cultivating gratitude and resilience. It involves briefly and deliberately imagining losing something or someone you deeply value. Maybe your job, your health, a loved one, your comfortable home.
Okay, deliberately thinking about losing things. Why?
Because then you return to the present moment, where you do still have those things, with a renewed and profound appreciation for them. It's a powerful antidote to what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill, our frustrating human tendency to quickly adapt to positive changes and then immediately start wanting more, taking the good for granted.
It resets your appreciation level.
Exactly. By mentally preparing for potential loss or challenges without dwelling morbidly, it diminishes their psychological shock if they do occur, and it cultivates a deeper, more stable appreciation for the present blessings. It allows you to face potential future difficulties with a mindset of, okay, I knew this was a possibility, it's a dispreferred indifferent, I can handle this with virtue, rather than being completely floored by unexpected misfortune. It fosters gratitude and preparedness simultaneously.
That's such a practical way to combat that constant feeling of wanting more or the anxiety of potentially losing what you have. And what about navigating the just endless stream of notifications, emails, messages, and distractions that plague our lives today? That feels like a uniquely modern problem.
That's precisely where attention management becomes absolutely critical, and Stoicism offers direct guidance. In our hyper-connected world, the ability to consciously direct our focus towards what truly matters, our reasoned choice, our values, our duties, our important relationships, deep work, is a kind of superpower. Stoic principles encourage us to guard our attention fiercely, seeing it as one of our most precious resources.
So how do we do that practically?
Practical strategies that align perfectly with Stoicism include things like designating specific weekly tech-free periods, maybe having digital sunset hours in the evening, going on actual digital fasts during vacations to be fully present, or simply practicing mindful tech use by consciously focusing on one task at a time without constantly switching or checking notifications. These aren't just productivity hacks, they are direct applications of Stoic wisdom about focusing on the essential and controlling your impulses. They help us reclaim mental energy and cultivate genuine presence, allowing us to think deeply rather than just reacting superficially.
That makes a lot of sense. And how about our interactions online? The anonymity and distance of the internet can sometimes lead to, well, less virtuous behavior. People saying things online they'd never dream of saying face-to-face.
That's a huge modern challenge, and it's where the concept of virtual virtue becomes incredibly relevant. Applying Stoic ethics to our online interactions means consciously practicing self-control, empathy, justice, and ethical decision-making in all our online communication emails, social media posts, comments, forums, just as we hopefully strive to do offline.
So bringing your best self to the keyboard.
Exactly. It's about remembering your reasoned choice, your prohairesis is always active, and choosing to act virtuously even when you're hidden behind a screen name. It asks you to pause before hitting send on that angry comment. Is this rational? Is this just? Is this helpful? Is this aligned with my best self? It's a powerful call to bring our ethical commitments into every digital space, resisting the easy impulse to react with anger, tribalism, or judgment, and instead choosing to foster constructive, reasoned, and civil engagement. Imagine asking, if Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus were tweeting, how would they tweet? It raises the bar.
That's a fantastic question to ask yourself. Finally, what about the broader impact of Stoicism beyond personal well-being? Is it finding traction in fields like leadership and business, for example?
Yes, increasingly so. Stoic principles are being recognized more and more for their immense potential to enhance leadership skills and foster more ethical business practices, especially in our current era of rapid change, economic uncertainty, and complex global challenges.
How so? How does Stoicism apply in the boardroom?
Well, for leaders, it's incredibly valuable for focusing on what can actually be controlled within uncertain business environments. Things like their own strategic decisions, their personal integrity, the ethical culture they build within their team, how they treat employees, rather than getting swept away by panic about market fluctuations or competitor actions they can't control.
So, maintaining calm and focus under pressure.
Precisely. It cultivates resilience in the face of inevitable setbacks or failures. It encourages empathy and ethical decision-making towards employees, customers, and stakeholders, seeing them as fellow human beings deserving of respect. And it promotes a long-term, virtuous approach to business, focusing on sustainable value creation and fulfilling a useful purpose in society over purely short-term, potentially unprincipled gains. Ethical entrepreneurship, for instance, can be strongly grounded in Stoic ideals, prioritizing building something of genuine value over selfish excess, carefully considering the broader impact of business decisions on the community and environment, the cosmopolis, not just on the bottom line. These are all direct, practical applications of ancient Stoic wisdom to the challenges of the modern marketplace and modern leadership.
What an incredible journey we've taken today, deep diving into the profound and surprisingly practical philosophy of Stoicism. From its ancient origins on that painted porch in Athens with Zeno, Cleanthes, and Chrysippus, through those Roman giants like Seneca, the slave-turned teacher Epictetus, and the emperor Marcus Aurelius, right up into its striking and deeply powerful modern relevance in our digital age.
It's quite a span, isn't it?
It really is. We've seen how it provides this timeless framework for understanding ourselves and our place in the wider world. It's about cultivating virtue as the only true good, mastering that profound art of discerning what's truly within our control and what isn't, facing adversity not just with endurance but with active resilience, and learning to extend our circle of concern outwards to encompass all of humanity through concepts like Hierarchy circles and oikiosis. It really feels like a philosophy designed not just for academics and ivory towers, but for every single one of us just trying to navigate the complexities and challenges of everyday life.
And it's crucial to remember as we wrap up that this pursuit isn't about reaching some final destination called perfect Stoic sage. It's an ongoing journey, a daily, sometimes hourly practice of attention and intention. Epictetus gives us this really poignant reminder near the end of his discourses, urging us to be courageous in our self-assessment and our engagement with the world. He says something like, We are now sending a scout to Rome, but no man sends a cowardly scout who, if he only hears a noise and sees a shadow anywhere, comes running back in terror and reports that the enemy is close at hand.
Don't be a cowardly scout.
Right. He's telling us that we are our own scouts in life, constantly gathering information, receiving impressions from the world, and making reports back to ourselves about the nature of reality, about what's truly good or bad, frightening or desirable. The critical question for each of us, then, is what kind of report will you choose to bring back? Will it be one colored by fear, anxiety, and complaint about external circumstances you can't control? Or will it be a report grounded in calm observation, inner strength, rational judgment, and purposeful, virtuous action based on what is within your control? The choice of report is always ours.
That's such a powerful challenge for all of us to take away, isn't it? The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, believe fundamentally that no man either hurts another or does good to another, but that a man's opinion about each thing is that which hurts him, is that which overturns him. Think about that. So here's the final thought for you to consider this week as you navigate your own experiences. If our opinions, our judgments about things are indeed the ultimate source of both our suffering and our joy, what one opinion, maybe one recurring judgment that causes you distress or limits you, might you choose to deliberately re-examine or perhaps consciously cultivate this week? What internal shift could unlock a greater sense of freedom, resilience, and tranquility in your own life, starting right now?